The webinar is being recorded. Welcome everyone to Crypto for Healers and Visionaries. I'm Tiffany Carole, and I'm so happy that you decided to do this. I'm honored that you chose to take some time out of your life. Time is one of, I think, the most precious resources that we have now, that you took some time out of your life to join me to listen to this. I know that 2 hours can feel like a lot of time, but I think that if you're tuning into this, like really giving it your attention, I think that you're going to find it very interesting and engaging. And if for some reason 2 hours is just too much for you to take this in, even though it is engaging, then know that you can always tune back into the replay. But I do encourage you to go from start to finish with this, particularly if this area is new to you. So I put together a keynote presentation because I wanted to be efficient with our time and have some visuals to keep things engaging. So we're going to check out that. And I also wanted to acknowledge that there was over 500 people that registered for this. And we now have 110, 111, magical number of 111, 112 people on live, 13. And what a brilliant thing, people from all around the world gathering around this topic at this time. It's a beautiful thing. Okay, so let me share my screen with you. And I'm coming to you, by the way, from Sri Lanka. It's my last night here in Sri Lanka after having been here for 3 months. Okay, we're going to put this into a full screen mode. And then we'll check with Robin. Robin, if you're still on, if you can tell me if you can see both the keynote and then my picture up at the top. I just want to make, or my video feed up at the top. Crypto for Healers and Visionaries. What's Robin say? Yes, okay, got it. My brother's on. Guess what? My parents are on, I'm pretty sure. My mom and dad. Love it. I love it. I love that my family's listening to me talk about crypto. I love that so very much. I've actually started now, instead of giving gifts for Christmas, for example, or for birthdays, I'm shifting to just giving the gift of crypto. So that's helping to get people in the family to, on board with a nice exchange, which we'll talk about at the end, and ways to send crypto back and forth. So here we are. And this, I'm particularly well equipped and well experienced to be able to bring this particular conversation to healers and visionaries. And that's why it really is created for you, healers and visionaries, world changers, culture creators, those people who feel on some level, whether they fully acknowledged it to themselves or not, that they are here, they incarnated during this time to help facilitate these changes that we're in the midst of. So why should you care? I like starting off with this. I really like starting off with this question, because this is your time. This is your precious time, precious resource. Why should you care about this conversation? Well, just a few reasons to kick it off. This is shaping the future, your future right now. Your legacy, personal and professional spheres are profoundly influenced by it already. And it's already, and it's going to continue to grow from there. There is also great opportunity for real and meaningful participation in cultural change and the creation of the future. So even if, and we're going to take a poll in a minute, but even if you either don't like crypto or the idea of crypto, or less charged than that, you just don't feel that interested in it, this learning about this will still help you within your personal and professional sphere. And it will also help you with having, as they say, a leg up in the process that's unfolding before us, basically in the future meeting us now. This would be like, if you if if when the internet, which we're going to get into, if when the internet was first becoming a thing, like when there was lots of naysayers and people didn't really know what the heck it was, if you could fast forward to you now and then drop the information back to you then about how profound it would be, it would shape how you do life then. It's the same with this. So why I care and what I'm bringing to the conversation, I put this in because we're going to be spending this time together. And I know I probably know a lot of you, and some of you probably don't know me that well yet or at all. So I want to share a little bit about my background and my expertise and what I'm bringing to this conversation. My background is in evolutionary biology. I actually studied biology and chemistry in relationship to pre-med. And my particular focus in my junior and senior year was on basically how the networks inside the body interface or communicate with the networks outside of the body in order to facilitate change and biological evolution. Then I spent just under 10 years in a fairly structured, intensive study of economics. And then I studied the holistic healing arts, which I still, particularly in the realms of Chinese medicine, food energetics practice. I no longer have it as of 2021, but had a clinical practice, active, busy clinical practice for 20 years. And my the main thrust of my practice was working with the resolution of transgenerational trauma and supporting people in very real integrated transformation. And there were particular areas of focus that I had around addiction, autoimmune diseases, and again, transgenerational trauma, which all those things are connected. And part of what I'm bringing to this conversation is how cryptocurrency, Bitcoin in particular, and blockchain technology are actually catalysts for transgenerational trauma resolution. We're going to get into that in this time. Lastly, what I wanted to weave in is that I have really a lifetime of, I guess I would refer to it as spiritual devotion. And that's taken many different forms over the years. But what I mean by spiritual devotion is perhaps a better way to say it would be a spiritual focus. I am a scientist at heart. I love scientific inquiry, but I love it in the sense that it can serve our own spiritual growth and soulful growth in this form, in this material body. So my focus and my practice really of spiritual orientation and metaphysical orientation helps me to bridge what I would call the seen and the unseen worlds, in order to midwife the future. And that's really part of, you'll feel that as I go through this presentation. The unseen world is the world of blockchain. It's, we're not actually touching Bitcoins like we are touching actual coins. These are unseen worlds. And what I will be doing through the languaging and through the presentation of certain concepts is bridging the practical, tangible with the unseen. Okay, good. So before we go further, I'm going to do two things. One is, if you can, if you're not driving or riding a bike or something, close your eyes for a moment. Just feel yourself sort of spin down. And at the same time that you feel yourself sort of spin down, if you're revved up with thoughts or to-dos, etc., also become aware of the enormous amount of activity and energy that is happening right now inside of you. You are this miraculous entity I don't even want to, we can't really refer to us as machines. We're so much more than that. This miraculous being that you are, with all of this genius activity that is going on without you efforting. It's just happening on your behalf in service to your life here now. You are made up of the rarest stuff in the universe. The rarest stuff in the universe. We are made up of stardust. This is the rarest material substance in the universe. And feel, see, know the utter, unfathomable brilliance, value, treasure that is you. The treasure that is you. Doesn't matter what your mind says. Just feel the treasure that is you. You, made up of the rarest stuff in the universe, with miraculous happenings constantly without your thinking about them. And all the beings, all the ancestors who've come before you, leading up to you right now, right here, just exactly as you are. Yes. This is the value, this is the worth that is not debatable. You are inherently worthy. You are inherently worthy, precious, rare. And in these last few seconds, receiving a showering in through the top of your head, through the crown, and also up through the earth into your feet, into your sitting bones, your booty. Let's just call it a booty. Right up through your booty and your feet, down through your crown, feeling the showerings and blessings. The blessings from your future self. The blessings up from the earth, from the roots of trees, from the microorganisms up into your body. The wisdom of the bones of our ancestors right up into our body. As you feel ready, and only as you feel ready, open your eyes. Come to. Okay. Quote, people ask me to predict the future when all I want to do is prevent it. Better yet, build it. Predicting the future is much too easy anyway. You look at the people around you, the street you stand on, the visible air you breathe, and predict more of the same. To hell with more. I want better. I put this quote in here because we are in times where the collective, the degree of collective fear is heightened. And, you know, there's plenty of points in history when collective fear has been heightened. There's nothing necessarily novel about that. But what's important to note is that when we're in times of collective fear, and I name it as collective because what happens when we have individual fear and the collective fear are both heightened, they resonate with each other and they strengthen the vibration, they strengthen the field, if you will, of fear. And when we're in unproductive fear, so fear is not bad in and of itself, but unproductive fear wreaks havoc. because we lose access to a lot of our bigger intelligence, to higher guidance, if you believe in that, or your own internal guidance, and our world contracts. And when we're in unproductive fear, what we do is, then this is just totally human nature, it's a phenomena, is we take basically the worst case scenarios that we can think of, those things that we're terrified of, and we project them into the present moment, or we could even say into the future. We project them. And because the what we call reality is highly mutable, we are constantly co-creating what we call reality together in real time by where we put our attention. And so if you take masses of humans that are in unproductive fear, that are then projecting their worst nightmares into the present moment and beyond, that is what we then create momentum in regards to co-creating in real time. And so we need things, we need thought forms, we need beliefs, we need ideas that actually, this is how I think about it and feel it, that come to us from the future to us now. Time is not just linear, by the way. So from our future to us now, these ideas that lift us up and out into possibility. And even if the idea that lifts you up and out into possibility doesn't turn out to be how you thought it was going to be, it really actually doesn't matter, because the treasure of that phenomena is that that idea opened you up to something different. When we get opened up to something different, we can vision something different and we can create something different. This is essential. This is essential to change if we really want change. And this famous quote, which I love so much, we can't solve our problems with the same thinking that we used when we created them. And this is so true. You know, in my study of spiral dynamics and the evolution of human consciousness, what we see repeatedly throughout history is that we, as humans, we reach an apex of problems, of sort of epic problems that seem unsolvable in many ways. And then we have some kind of breakthrough to a saving grace. We'll call it a saving grace. Something, some idea, some entity, some movement that provides a different way of thinking. And it really is like this, provides a different way of thinking streaming into us now. And so our present self can merge with this future idea, and we can be lifted up through the rung of the spiral, through the rungs of development this way. And so then as we get lifted up and we move up the spiral, then we generate, or more problems are created, and so on the pattern goes. So this is what we're in the midst of right now, is this sort of squeezing into the apex of unfathomably or problems that seem unable to be solved. The sort of crack through of rays of hope or sunshine in different forms. And what I'm going to be sharing with you is one of them. And it gives us the opportunity to consider things in different ways so that we can actually come up with solutions from a different paradigm, a different mind than the mind that created them. So even if you decide never to invest in cryptocurrency, but this conversation opens you up to a different way of thinking, then that's your treasure. You know, that's your investment, that's your payoff, that's the reward. Okay, so in this time together, what we'll be doing is, this is just an outline for satisfying the mind. And also it was good for me to know, like, okay, this is what I'm covering in this time, because it's all beautiful stuff, and it's all stuff that is quite rich in and of itself. Yeah. Sound money principles and a brief history of monetary debasement and why that matters now more than ever. The digital progression, crypto and blockchain technology as evolutionary catalyst, Bitcoin and digital gold, exploring these innovations in relationship to soulful cultural development and cultural healing, debunking misinformation and fear bundled in sensationalized distraction, and thoughtful ways to get involved and how to find steadiness in information overload. That's what we're going to end on. Okay, good. So before we get started, or dive in further, I should say, I would like to do a poll. So how we do that? Let's see. How do we do that? Launch the poll. Okay, I think what's going to happen now is I think everyone should be seeing that this poll is here. I think. And then you can start answering the questions. And if anybody that knows my phone number is on this and they don't see the poll, oh no, I see, things are happening. Things are happening. Okay. And by the way, we will take a little 5-minute break about halfway through. Oh, this is cool. Lots of people answering. Got one text about getting stuck on question 2. Oh, I see. Yes. Good questions. I'm getting lots of texts. Okay, so if you yeah, so if you've never, is it in Bitcoin or something else? Oh, if it says no, if you put no, then it sticks you on question 2. Okay. Hit skip poll. Okay, so if you're getting stuck, sorry, if you're getting stuck on, I love that I'm getting all these texts. Great. If you got stuck, just skip poll. Okay, we'll collect the data from what we've got. And we'll take about 30 more seconds here. Okay, so at least we'll know for the people that said no to question 1, they really weren't able to go on. Good. Maybe I can redesign this poll on the break, and then we can get accurate information because we won't have people getting stuck. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll now. And if you got stuck, don't worry, it's okay. Here we go. So let's share the results. I think you all can see all of this. So it says, have you invested in crypto? 37% that answered said yes, 63% said no. So now we know that the people that said no couldn't actually go on in the quiz or the poll. So so our results are skewed a bit there. Now, is it in Bitcoin or something else? Because if they said no, they haven't invested in anything. The people that have invested, 30% Bitcoin only, 20% other cryptos only. Interesting, cool. Both Bitcoin and others, 50%. Right on. All right, what's your level of understanding about crypto? Almost zeros, 53% of the remaining people that answered. A little, 33%, a moderate amount, 12%, and 2% I know a lot. Right on. That's so cool. I love that there's a nice spread of knowledge here. So for those that know almost zero over the course of this webinar, some things might get just a little bit overwhelming, maybe. And if that's the case, just get up, move around, have some water. Don't try to absorb it all in one sitting. For those that know a lot, some of it is obviously going to be repeat for you, things that you already know, but the aspects of Bitcoin as a transformative catalyst and also blockchain technology in relationship to healing transgenerational wounds, that might be a new concept or a new slant, or it might take you deeper into sort of inklings that you've had. Number 4, what if anything else makes you most nervous or concerned about crypto? So lack of understanding was 76, environmental concerns 15%. That's cool. We're going to get into that. Fear that it may be a bubble or fad 41%. I just don't like the digital advancement 4%. Government backlash. Okay, this is great. Great information. Okay. So we are going to continue on. Couple more quotes. Read or learn, not to contradict or confute, nor to believe and take for granted, nor to find talk and discourse, but to weigh and consider. So that's the tone I'd like to set here. There's, for those of you that are, already dabble or deep into the crypto space, there's definitely a lot of, banter back and forth, and, one person says this, the other person says that, lots of conflicting predictions and ideas. And this really isn't about making predictions, although I'm going to build a case for why crypto and blockchain technology is here to stay. And you don't have to, I build the case so that you can consider it. You can weigh and consider for yourself. So really, this is not sensationalized stuff, even though you're going to see me probably get very excited about certain things. It's really presenting solid, stable, integrated information for you to bring into your sphere, your awareness. You have a brain and a mind of your own. Use it and reach your own decisions. Yes. Okay, here we go. A brief but important look at the history of money and value exchange. So, Sharon, I see you raised your hand. I'm going to stay with the presentation, but if you have something urgent, you can text me. My number is 425-260-4733. 425-260-4733. That text will come through and then I'll check it out. Okay, what is money? The first thing is that the first thing to say is that it's actually important that we ask ourselves this question: what is money? And I think there's a lot of different ideas. It was fun for me to ask myself that question and just write down what I thought that it was, and then hear from different intellectuals about definitions and understandings of it. What I think is the clearest way to talk about money and think about money is that it's basically an emergent, money is an emergent phenomena in any trading society or marketplace. So sometimes people will go right to, like, money is something that's issued by central governments and regulated by central governments, et cetera. While that is true, that doesn't actually provide a definition, like a working dynamic definition of what money is. So money is an emergent phenomena in any trading society or marketplace. So if you see in this little picture, like before gold, it was different forms of bartering. And you probably know, we've used spices, we've used seashells, we've used all kinds of things. So over time, what happens is that the marketplace, which is another, we can say that the active society is the marketplace. over time, the marketplace chooses the most tradable thing. And this is actually one thing that I really love about the concept of money, and even leading us all the way up to cryptocurrency, is that there's no, even though regulation does come in, that's all part of it, but actually for something to be chosen as bartering, and even for gold to be chosen as backing money originally, paper money, that was a marketplace or a societal choice. It was a collective happening over time. It's not controlled by one entity, that choosing. Excuse me. And what ends up happening, if you look throughout history, is that the marketplace or society will choose the most tradable thing within any culture. So if you look at, like, for example, in prisons, there isn't, the most tradable thing might be cigarettes. And so then cigarettes act as the money or the exchange of value within that little microculture. So money is selected within the marketplace based on 5 primary things. And we're going to talk about that next. Those are the sound money principles, but just making a mention of them here. So I want to move forward from moving from barter to gold as basically money, sound money of the time. And then we're going to fast forward quite fast to metal coins, paper money, which is, paper money came into existence, at least in large part, because it's hard to transport gold around and pay for things with gold. It's heavy, it takes security, it's not that easily divisible, which we'll talk about. If you were going to pay for a cup of coffee with gold, you would have to have like a gold flake to pay for it. So eventually we developed paper money. There's some more complexities to that I'll leave out for brevity. So in 1944, this is significant, the Bretton Woods Agreement brought about a system through which a fixed currency exchange rate could be created using gold as the universal standard. This agreement involved representatives from 44 nations and brought about the creation of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. This was a huge happening. Now, there was a progression of degradations in this gold backing of currency. And it had to do with fractional banking and some other events over time that basically took it from a 1-for-1 backing of gold to paper money to smaller and smaller amounts of gold backing paper money. So eventually in 1971, we came off the gold standard. So it was Richard Nixon, and he closed the gold window in 1971 in order to address the country's inflation problem. This is actually a pretty complex event, and I'm not going into the complexities because it's beyond the scope of this, but I just wanted you to know that if you're interested in this, it's worth taking a dive into. It's quite fascinating. And I listed a website there for you. It's WTF, like what the WTF happened in 1971.com. It's a really fascinating website that shows some powerful stats about these different trajectories that were launched off from 1971 on. And there was a real, we could only call it certain kinds of breakdown within culture and divisions within wealth that were, ultimately unsupportive to healthy culture. I mean, when you look at this, you'll see that there were actually suicide rates went up, addiction rates went up. It's very fascinating. And I'm going to get more into some of why I believe that is as we progress. So now fast forwarding all the way to 2021. Now we've gone through paper money, completely detached from the gold standard, being able to print, plastic cards, electronic money, moving our way into this. So 2022, money printing, inflation, and the height of debasement. There's people argue about what inflation rates are at this time, and it's an interesting thing that I've gone deep into. You can't, inflation rate is not a fixed number because it's always going to vary based on what you're looking at. If you're looking at valuable assets, or if you're looking at commodities, food, for example, it's going to vary. But you're going to see a range right now at this time of inflation from 7% all the way up to 24%, depending what you're looking at. So it's very, very high. Currently, 60% of the US dollars in circulation have been printed in the last 18 months. I just think that's mind-blowing. Okay, now we get into okay, great. So now we're going to get into sound money principles. This is also super interesting. I invite you to nerd out with me now. Come on. Here we go. So for money to be sound, it needs to be divisible, so we can break it up into smaller pieces. It needs to be portable. We can move it around. We can carry it in our pocket. It needs to be recognizable. So this is also verifiable. This is one of the challenges with gold, is that, in fact, the first three were real challenges with gold. Is it's hard to divide it up. It's not so portable. It's heavy. It needs security. And in terms of recognizable, meaning verifiable, whenever there would be significant gold transfers, there's also a whole process that has to go, one has to go through to I think they call it assay the gold, to make sure that it's the real deal, that it hasn't been cut. The other thing is that it needs to be durable. You know, for example, if we were trading in fruits, we wouldn't be able to do that across the world. I'm laughing because in Sri Lanka, we do kind of do that. You could do a lot of trading in fruits. And also, oh, scare, that should be scarce. That's funny. I think it's kind of ironic that it says scare, because one of the biggest challenges right now with the money situation is that is scary, actually, is that the debasement of currency, of fiat currency, which is paper money, is happening at such an alarming rate because of the printing of it. And the problem with the printing of it, on the one hand, you could say, oh, but there's so much more money in circulation. Shouldn't that be good? But if you're taking something that's a scarce, should be a scarce asset, because it's about value and exchange of value, and it's being printed up, it's losing its scarcity, which there's an important conclusion that I'm going to bring us to about that in just a moment. I'll do it right now, actually. I have it in these notes. So here we go. Can we talk about that now? Yes. Okay, here we go. So when we moved from, this is going to tie to scarcity, when we moved from or off the gold standard in 1971, we broke the peg, right? We broke the peg to the dollar of gold. And we basically moved from a free system, which was market selected money, which was gold, market selected money. It was a free system. The market selected it, to a monopoly and an unfree market. Now, how is that? That's because once we detached from the gold standard and the money itself was put into the possession or into the hands of governments, the Fed, central banks, that could then print more, untied to this freely chosen market chosen store of value, the money could then flow to those connected, you know, how do I say? Those at the top, I guess that would be an easy way to say it. Those connected to the printing of the money and extending from that could benefit the most, while the inflation that it caused created the most suffering for everyone else. We kind of, you know, often we'll think about it as like top of the heap, bottom of the heap. So we moved from a free system to a monopoly and an unfree market. And in this, there was an unfettered ability to further compromise the scarcity of money to favor the few at the expense of everyone else. basically they could siphon gains to who the central bank selects. And this is when we see that connection of this website, WTF happened in 1971. You start to see all of these crazy stats in relationship to a bigger division, a bigger gap between the rich and the poor, and addiction, suicide, etc. So here's the thing that I want to emphasize, and sit with this. This is really powerful, and I had to sit with it for a while myself to really let it sink in. Money is the medium to express exchange ratios. Money is the medium to express exchange ratios. The dozen egg costs this much, that watch costs this much. When the central bank compromises the scarcity of money, it's corrupting the denominator of prices. When we corrupt the denominator of prices, this corrupts the very system. This is really important. This corrupts the very system through which we communicate, which are prices. So I'm going to read that one more time. It takes a little bit to let it siphon through, but when you feel it, you'll really start to feel why, especially for sensitive, empathic ones, healers, sensitive visionaries, we don't want to have a lot to do with money because it just feels shifty. It doesn't feel right. Even if you like money and you want more money, it's like there's something that doesn't feel quite right. So money is medium to express exchange ratios. When the central bank compromises the scarcity of money, it's corrupting the denominator of prices. This corrupts the very system through which we communicate, which are prices, the value of something. Okay. We're going to go back to this sound money principles when we touch on Bitcoin, okay? And we're going to go for a little bit longer and take a short break. So here we are at the digital movement and progression. Now, stay with me. I know that I just dropped some big things into the soup pot here, and I haven't really given sort of satisfying conclusion type information, or even talked about how it connects to cryptocurrency or blockchain. I am going to get there. I'm laying the groundwork for really understanding both why cryptocurrency and blockchain has arisen now and why it's not going anywhere. So now we're going to look at the digital movement and progression. So the digital revolution. Oh, one more thing as we go into this is, if you have an opinion, like if you have emotional responses about digital progressions, like maybe you think, I don't like it, it's gonna kill human connection, or like my husband, he's a musician and he's always saying, I don't like streaming music, you have to have analog, you need to, and which I agree, music sounds so much better on record players. So set aside whatever your emotional experiences with this conversation, just for looking at the timelines and the information and understanding the information, and then you can weave back in your emotional response. So the digital revolution began between the late 1950s and 1970s. Technology has progressively moved from mechanical and analog to digital. And it solved many scalability and connectivity issues within culture. So the digital revolution has also followed alongside the increase in population, human population on the planet. And we're going to get to a thought experiment in a moment for you to think about it with yourself. So I'll pause with that. So it has impacted every major area of life: finances, entertainment, relationships, communications, and workflows. So let's just think about this. Entertainment, we used to have, my grandparents had, what do you call those things? 8-tracks and records. And then remember we had cassettes and then CDs. I remember when CDs were so like of the future. And then now, I have this giant book of all these CDs, but I never listen to them because I don't own a CD player. So that's part of the digitization of music. We have the digitization of relationships in relationship to social media, doing emails instead of actual handwritten mail, things like this. Workflows are digitized through the internet and all of the connective forces that we can use through the internet for workflows. I don't even know what I would do without Google Work Suite anymore. I think that's what it's called. So now I want you to think back for a moment to, if you're old enough, to pre-internet, pre-cell phone. Remember that? Pre-internet, pre-cell phone. And if somebody would have told you then that you were going to have this device that you would walk around with, and that you were going to basically kind of run your life from it. You could do your banking, you could call people, you could surf this internet, which even the internet didn't exist. It would have seemed incomprehensible to us at that time. So for many at this point in the further digitization of life, and this is in all areas, in art, in entertainment, in relationships, in finances, and also in real estate, such a thing as digital real estate, which we'll touch on briefly, that for many of us, it might seem completely unfathomable right now, just like the internet was unfathomable before. And so speaking of that, we're going to move forward to, I did a little research because I wanted to see what were people saying about the internet when it was first coming out. I was curious to see if there was any similarities between those responses and some of the responses that we see now to this idea of cryptocurrency. So in 1995, Newsweek wasn't having any of it and published a dismissive article titled "The Internet, Bah," which reacted against the idea that this silly digital blip was going to infiltrate and replace elements of our everyday lives. This is a quote. "The truth is, no online database will replace your daily newspaper, no CD-ROM can take the place of a competent teacher, and no computer network will change the way government works," author Clifford Stoll boldly declared in the piece. He quoted the predictions of nameless visionaries, almost all of which have come to be. Visionaries see a future that I had a nice chuckle when I read this. Visionaries see a future of telecommuting workers, interactive libraries, and multimedia classrooms. They speak of electronic town meetings and virtual communities. Commerce and business will shift from offices and malls to networks and modems, and the freedom of digital networks will make government more democratic. Baloney, argued Stoll. We're promised instant catalog shopping, just point and click for great deals. We'll order airline tickets over the network, make restaurant reservations, and negotiate sales contracts. Stores will become obsolete. So how come my local mall does more business in an afternoon the entire internet handles in a month? Even if there were a trustworthy way to send money over the internet, which there isn't, the network is missing the most essential ingredient of capitalism: salespeople. So I love this because you can really see, like in stark contrast, everything that he really felt couldn't be possible has completely become possible. And the other thing that I love about this example is that you also get to see that, while pretty much every one of these things has come into being, he is pointing to some sincere and genuine concerns about these coming into being. And I think this is also part of having a healthy discourse and healthy conversations about cryptocurrency, is also basically identifying what could be possible problems, not to naysay the plausibility of cryptocurrency being beneficial or that it's even going to stay, because at this point it isn't going anywhere, but more to prepare ourselves to do this and to build this future with as much intentionality as possible. quick note that I see someone is raising their hand, and I'm not taking raised hands in this because this is a presentation style offering. After the webinar, I'll be sending out an email with a link to the recording. And if there's something that you really need or want to say to me in that, please feel free. I'd be happy to hear from you. Okay, let's see. This might be a good place for. This might be a good, and Flora, I see it was you that was raising your hand. If you want to send me an email on the break, if there's something, I can check it on the break. Okay, so we were just at what experts say. Okay, so before we head into this present and into the future, which is going to be Web 3.0, let's take a 5-minute break. And I will see you back in 5 minutes. Return. It's going to get even more juicy as we go further. See you in 5. So take a little stretch if you didn't already. If you love essential oils, maybe you might smell something that's pungent and awakening, like rosemary. The other one that I really like, especially for tuning into these sort of futuristic feeling conversations that we're going to start having here next, is frankincense. Frankincense has this way of connecting to our future essence in the now. I don't have any frankincense with me, but I'm going to go for some marjoram. Okay. And if you don't know much about oils or work with them, it's really nice actually when you're doing more dense stuff with your brain and working your brain to take little oil breaks, to smell an oil. And it actually helps to balance the brain, the way we can process and receive. And it helps us to come more in our body so that we can receive with the full intelligence of our body as well. Okay. Ready? We're digging in to the sci-fi feeling future that heals our past. Here we go. I'm so happy to see that you all are on. Okay. Here we go. Remember where we were just a moment ago before break? We were here at what experts had to say about the internet in the mid-90s. And now we are here at what's called Web 3.0, looking at network effects now. So this is layering network effects and blockchain technology. If it's your first time to hear some of these things, you may fuzz out a little bit. It might not feel like it's, you're completely grasping it. So my suggestion for you is just to relax your mind and receive what wants to come into you here and leave the rest. It doesn't really matter. If you're super interested, you can go back and listen to this again, and you can, of course, also research more. So notice what sort of sparks your attention, emotionally, mentally, or otherwise. So the next stage of the internet and blockchain technology in a nutshell. Web 3.0 is the latest internet technology that leverages machine learning, artificial intelligence, and blockchain to achieve real-world communication. If you don't know what blockchain is yet, don't worry. The icing on the cake is that Web 3.0 not only allows individuals to own their data, but they will be compensated for their time spent on the web. So this is a whole other radically amazing aspect of blockchain technology and the evolution of the internet with blockchain technology, but it's not something that we're going to go into in this time together. Another aspect of blockchain and also of Web 3.0 is that it's decentralized with specific centralized aspects. So this is really the opposite of how it exists, of how things exist now. We are primarily centralized in terms of power sources, with some decentralized, some small decentralized aspects. We'll get more into this in blockchain. So the important part of this decentralization is that it dismantles monopolies in information and power. Dismantles monopolies in information and power. The last thing that I'll say about in terms of an overview of this next layer of the internet that's being built upon the internet, that is able to do what it does because of blockchain technology, which we're going to talk about next, is that it fosters trust, hence the picture, true ownership, and the soil for empowered innovation. I really like this picture. This is a picture of basically what blockchain technology looks like if we sort of looked at it from the space view down. So there are these nodes or bigger balls of light, which we call nodes, and then the lines that connect the nodes. So the power sources are decentralized. It's not all in one place. And in just a little bit, I'm going to show you a picture actually from the brain of the central nervous system. And it looks surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, very similar to this. So what is blockchain? This is my favorite working definition of blockchain. You're definitely going to feel and hear my background and my background and my I guess we could say bias for orienting in life through this definition. So the blockchain, just imagine this with me. The blockchain is a digital manifestation of next level consciousness that's allowing solutions not totally available in our current level of consciousness to download or stream in. It's a digital, so in digital form, we can't actually touch it. It's a digital foundational systems, connected in systems, digital foundational systems layer that allows for potent and effective solutions to institutional legacy problems. So, I mean, if we really look at any of the big institutions, it's fraught with problems. Our educational system, our banking system, our governmental systems, these are our legacy institutional systems. And, you know, we've kind of gone for a while, like trying to sort of glue things back together or put a Band-Aid on them, and we can feel it's like it's not working. And not only is it not working, but we're actually not going to be able to get out of the predicaments that we're in as long as we keep trying to solve our current problems from the same level of thinking that created them. So these digital solutions have a dynamic moving, reciprocal, think of like an infinity loop, dynamic and reciprocal relationship within the analog world. These digital solutions have a dynamic reciprocal relationship with the analog world. And I love this because it's not just this full movement into digital and somehow our embodied experience is going to be disappearing, or, you know, having tea with someone face to face is going to disappear. But what we are seeing is that the digital solutions can flow into the analog world to enrich it. And from the analog world, as we're more enriched, we can flow in more innovation into this digital sphere. Think of it as fertile soil in which new things can grow and prosper. A true digital global community garden that supports the prosperity of material gardens in real neighborhoods. A true digital global community garden that supports the prosperity of material gardens in real neighborhoods. The blockchain itself is a web-like nodal structure. So like this picture, web-like nodal structure that decentralizes work and data, creating a robust community solution-driven power source. A robust community-driven power source. Indeed, it is also an empowerment source, reclaiming from corrupt sources the dynamic resources that are always available to us within healthy flowing systems. So when things get too centralized and too power heavy or top heavy, we could call them, corruption is inevitable. And because there's a hoarding of power in those systems, that we then experience a lack of resources in sort of the, the outside world from there. So when those dismantle and we have a different way of working and moving energy and verifying information that's decentralized, some of that hoarding of power gets broken up and redistributed throughout the network. This completely mirrors biology, by the way, completely. And if it's very interesting because what defines a cancer healthy cell is that the cancer cell basically acts as is from the community orientation or community messages of the body, and it grows and it hoards resources and creates stagnation by breaking up flow. So this is the same thing that happens when legacy systems become corrupt, dense, heavy, and old. And by the way, I hope that you can feel the energy behind me talking about this. This isn't to create a, I'm very mindful around not creating unproductive polarization. This is really about creating awareness so we can decide where we want to put our attention and our energy in terms of what we want to create. So the blockchain cannot be contained by borders. It cannot be owned by any government, and it cannot be co-opted by any corporation. It cannot be contained by borders. It cannot be owned by any government, and it cannot be co-opted by any corporation. It has the potential to create exponential, meaningful work for those that choose to be part of any number of areas within blockchain innovation itself. Also for those that simply choose to allow some of their computer processing power to work to and for the good of the blockchain ecosystem. So if this statement feels a little out of reach, like what does that even mean? What would the work be? Again, think of it kind of like at the advent of the internet, or when it was starting to progress into culture. We didn't really, or very few people really had any idea of how much work it was going to create for people, how much it was going to stimulate the economy, how much money, and innovation was going to flow through the internet. Most people had no idea. So it's a very similar place that we're at with blockchain technology. Okay, take a breath. That was a lot. Take a sip of water or whatever you like to drink. And again, I'm not taking questions because this is a webinar. But when I email out the recording to this webinar, if you have something that you were like, I really needed to say this to Tiffany or get it off my chest, then please do. Okay, what's the difference between blockchain and Bitcoin? Some of you already know this, some of you don't know this. Let's break it down. So Bitcoin, we would have to actually define Bitcoin now. And I know it's hard to, it's sort of hard to wrap your mind around in the beginning. So this is how I invite you to think about it. Think about Bitcoin like digital gold. So it's a store of value like gold is. It's digital gold. Now, the Bitcoin network is built into or exists because of blockchain technology. So it was actually the creator of Bitcoin, who's this mysterious figure who no one actually knows who this person is thought to be no longer with us, Satoshi Nakamoto. The creation of Bitcoin was in response to the 2008, at least in part, to the 2008 financial crisis, and seeing all of the distortion and the corruption that went on during that time, the bailouts, and the people, that the people that had the least suffered the most. And seeing the issue with scarcity and seeing the immense, I even say this, it's corruption, but also the inability to really trust these kinds of exchanges that involve money, because money itself wasn't something that could be trusted within the way it was built. So Bitcoin exists as a digital entity on the blockchain, and the blockchain is actually what allowed Bitcoin to come into being as sort of the final piece in that. I'm speaking in metaphors. So if I have anybody who's like a tech person on here who knows all of the tech stuff about this, just pardon me for not having the exact technical description and go with me here. So on the blockchain, you can move information through the blockchain in a way that's transparent to anyone who wants to see. And the blockchain itself is verifying transactions or verifying information. So think about the blockchain and the Bitcoin network, which exists through the blockchain, as railways. I like this metaphor so much, as crypto railways. So you have digital gold that can move across these crypto railways. And very much like, think about like there was no railways, and then there was railways, and the face of the world changed. We can look at all significant innovations like this, not having ways to cross the ocean, to having ships, seafaring vessels where you could cross the ocean, not having railways and then having railways, not having cars and then having cars. So we can now move digital gold across the world, across borders, through crypto railways at very, very fast speeds. Let's contrast this to moving gold across distances. It's heavy. You need to have a lot of protection, and it takes a lot of time. Very, very big difference there. Bitcoin has been growing at an annual rate of 113% versus the internet's growth at the time, meaning at the time of adoption, at the time within the adoption timeline, of 63%. So if we looked at the adoption timeline, Bitcoin's growing at an annual rate of 113%. The internet grew at 63%. Now the internet, we saw it was exponential logarithmic growth, and Bitcoin is even higher than that. So should Bitcoin's adoption slow to that of the internet, so that's a conservative estimate, it would still lead to 1 billion users by 2024 and 4 billion users by 2030. Pretty mind-blowing. Now, before we move on to that next picture, what I want to loop back around to is, remember our sound money principles? We had divisibility, durability, portability, recognizability, and scarcity. So the three areas where gold is really challenged is in divisibility, portability, and verifiability, which is recognizability. So Bitcoin is nearly infinitely divisible. You can buy $5 worth of Bitcoin or $5 million worth of Bitcoin. It's durable in that the blockchain itself protects Bitcoin. And also durability has to do with how it persists over time. In essence, Bitcoin is immortal. As long as the internet or some part of the internet exists, Bitcoin will exist. It's portable in that you can send it across the world, across borders very rapidly. It's verifiable, or its recognizability, it's verifiable through that transparent blockchain network. They call it the ledger. So we can see and verify Bitcoin transactions across the network. And it is scarce. It's what's called perfected scarcity. And this is one of the things that I love about Bitcoin the most, perfected scarcity. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. It's built into, I guess we could say, the program of Bitcoin, how it unfolds over time. We won't have more than 21 million. That's all there is. It can't be corrupted at that level. This is really important when we look at exchange of value and store of value. Okay. I'm wondering what's swirling in your head at the moment. Maybe take a moment to identify what's swirling around in your head, what questions you have, what emotions might be coming up. If you're feeling like you're tuning out a little bit, or you feel like you're leaning in a little more, just notice. Now check this out. Remember that picture that I showed you of blockchain? So this is neural nets inside the nervous system, central nervous system, the brain. So you can see those nodes, and you can see all like the web of connection. Our synaptic impulses or synaptic pulses go through this web. So the reason why I wanted to put this picture in is I think especially for healers and people that are very attuned to the earth, sometimes it can feel like this movement of cryptocurrency is, it's like taking us away from something natural. You know, it can feel unnatural. But in the deep dive and study that I've been in with cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and blockchain technology, what I constantly see are parallels to biology. So what we're seeing develop outside of us mirrors what actually happens inside of us. It's actually a natural unfolding of complexification of systems. As systems become more complex, there are certain significant changes that take place. We see it within biological systems, and we also see it now in, I guess, what we could call digital systems. I find peace in that. Good. Somebody just texted, yeah. Yes, Bitcoin is only, to affirm, somebody said it's finite. Yes, that's its scarcity. We will only have 21 million. In case that was confusion with that person about me saying that it's immortal, the immortality aspect has to do with the fact that Bitcoin can't be broken down out of existence. The only way it could go out of existence is if the entire internet was abolished off the face of the earth. So Bitcoin lives on, and it's perfected scarcity. Okay, now we're going to look at the healing aspects of blockchain and Bitcoin. And this is just a little sweet dabble. Dabble, is that a word? Dab? Toe dipping, ankle dipping into the healing aspects of blockchain and Bitcoin. If you get excited about this is actually what I get most excited about. And I've created a whole course called Bitcoin is Transformation. I know that's a bit of a long URL to take in, but if you actually type into the search engine, Tiffany Carole, Bitcoin is Transformation, you'll probably see some of my YouTube videos, and then you'll see my online platform with this course. If you're interested in that course, or if you're interested in knowing more about this, I think you will love the course, especially for my healer friends, because I actually go into the 5 elements in Chinese medicine, which also represent the 5 directions on the transformational compass. And we look at how Bitcoin and blockchain technology relates to the 5 elements and these aspects of healing in our embodied form in this life. If you use the coupon code Bitcoin, it's like $248 off the course. So you get the course for $49. Yeah, check it out. Okay, so looking at, excuse me, the healing aspects. Yeah, we are. The few things that I want to pull out about the healing aspects are trust, the healing of trust, and the creation of opportunity, which heals some of the deepest wounds of domination and submission. So first, we're going to start with trust. And again, this is a little dabble. So the oldest wound in the collective is actually the wound of betrayal. And if you look at creation mythos throughout cultures, you'll see that there's a common thread through at least all of them that I've ever studied. And it has to do with betrayal and broken trust. If we just take the story of Adam and Eve, for example, that's the creation story I'm most familiar with. And it was basically a triple betrayal. You had Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. Eve betrays Adam. Adam and Eve betray God. God betrays them by casting them out of the Garden of Eden. So there's this theme of betrayal or broken trust that's at the core of this kind of disconnect from the depth of our power. And we could even say from our God selves, from our creator selves. And so part of the hero or the heroine's journey in this life is, we could describe it as a healing or a mending of trust. And in and through that healing and mending of trust, and it's usually from within ourselves, for self to self, self to other, self to God, in some order like this. And as we heal that trust or mend that trust, we become connected to the fullness of who we are. And as I said, our God self or our creator self. We came here to create. We came here to become more and more awake to the truth that we are creating at all times. We just get the opportunity to become more awake and more conscious in what and how we create. So money as this primary way of communicating and exchanging energy with other beings across the planet, if at its core, it has this shiftiness to it. It has this corruption at its core. And what I mean by at its core is within the systems as they exist at its core. Money is neither good nor bad. It just is what it is. But if you look at the systems that give rise to money, if they're corrupt, then the energy around that money is not experienced, and the actuality around that money is not experienced as trustworthy. So we have so much dense and heavy, intense karma around money, pain around money. I call it the money wounds. Wars fought over money, murders over money, the most horrific, awful things within history over money. When we look at Bitcoin, and many will argue, I'll say this now, as I say it to them, but it seems appropriate now, is that there's plenty of arguments that come up that Bitcoin is not an effective currency. And actually, they're right. It's not really an effective currency. It's an effective store of value, which is why I like calling it digital gold. There are many other cryptos that perform much better in terms of currency exchange. But just like gold backed paper money, we look at Bitcoin as backing whatever we can move, whatever is more liquid and faster to move. That's part of our monetary exchange. When we have something that's safe, that's protected, that's transparent, that is perfected scarcity, there's only 21 million of them, that it can't be destroyed. All of these aspects lend to a completely different paradigm in relationship to money. There is opportunity for trust there. That's number one. The second thing that I wanted to speak about is opportunity. So this is the first time in the history of the world that we know of where anybody who has a $40 or $50 smartphone can purchase, with downloading of an app and some even small amount of their money, purchase Bitcoin as digital gold, as store of value. And if they leave it alone over time, they get something that grows in value. And this may sound small, but this is huge when you think that the majority of people on the planet can't afford to buy a physical home or a physical piece of property. I'm here in Sri Lanka right now, and I mean, to buy a car is so inaccessible to the majority of the people in this country because cars are so expensive. And cars really actually don't grow in value, so that's not the best example, but this notion of being able to buy something that will grow in value over time, that can't be seized by a government, it can't be debased by a government. This is enormous. This is a huge game changer. Some of you know this, I'm sure, but some of you don't. El Salvador in 2021 was the first country to come off of the US dollar standard and to decouple from it and to make Bitcoin their actual fiscal currency. And there probably will be issues with that come up as they unfold this in time. But the fact that that happened is such a keystone, a place to mark in history books. This is really going to shift the energy around underdog countries that are right now and are going to continue to suffer the most at the hands of massive printing of USD, US dollar. So we have this opportunity for people that previously couldn't have it to have store of value, store of wealth, and that changes consciousness. It heals the wounds of helplessness and hopelessness that are born from slavery structures or enslavement structures, domination and submission structures. Okay, I love this stuff and could talk about it forever, but we need to continue on. I will say one more thing about this before we move on, that this is a peek back at history. This is interesting. And it has to do also with the pandemic. Remember how I was saying earlier that when we look at the spiral, the evolution of consciousness, that we always reach sort of an apex of problems. And then there's sort of a pop into a kind of different consciousness or energy that can stream in so that we can begin to solve problems from a different level of awareness, a different way of thinking. And when we look at the time period of the Black Plague, beginning around 1400s, this was sort of the in many ways this was the apex of the problems of feudal systems having kings and queens and the knights and so on down to the peasants and the serfs. So originally, if you trace back through history, the feudal systems actually developed to solve very real big problems, and they did quite a good job at solving those problems for a while. And then they developed their own problems, and they hit the apex of their problems, which had to do with hoarding of power and money. When the Black Death or the Black Plague hit and wiped out, I forgot the stat, it was most of Europe was wiped out in over a relatively short time period. It didn't discriminate. It killed royalty and peasants alike. And after that happened, that structure was actually destabilized and began to dismantle. Had that not happened, who knows how long that structure would have carried on with force of power. And so it dismantled, and we got to see actually the birth. That was the birth of the middle class, or the birth of the merchant class. There are some similarities here to this time. And I know that we see a lot of really unjust things in terms of movement, concentration of wealth at the very top points. But with cryptocurrency and blockchain technology and the disruption, I mean, blockchain technology is the most positively disruptive technology, certainly of our lifetime. People could argue for much longer spans of time. I need a little water. With the disruption that is and will continue to happen with blockchain technology and crypto, we also have this opportunity for a shifting and a transfer of wealth. And I don't totally know what this is going to look like. I get sort of, I can only call them intuitive senses of how this is starting to take shape. But it's something, as visionaries that you are, to pay attention to as we move forward. And again, keeping in mind that example that I gave of the collapse of feudal systems. How are we doing on time? Pretty good. Okay. Healing is a matter of time, but it is sometimes also a matter of opportunity. And again, this crypto and blockchain technology is presenting and will continue to present massive opportunity for the people, the everyday person. Okay, so here we are, objections. Now, here I have been talking about how amazing it is, how it can be healing, and the innovation and what's making possible, and redistributions of wealth, all of this stuff that probably sounds good to most of us, I would think. And maybe you might be going ding, 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 but wait, I've heard this, and what about this? So objections are important, really important. It's important to explore them with an open mind. And this is why I'm so happy to be together with you in this conversation, because a lot of the exploring of objections that happens, for example, on YouTube is just highly sensationalized, and it's just intense. So we're going to explain it in a beautiful, grounded way. I did some really thorough research for you, for us, and we're not going to have time to hit on all of the objections, but this will at least get you started with the major ones. So the major ones I chose are energy usage, this particularly for Bitcoin, regulations, is this a fad or a bubble, internet failure, safety, this crypto is better than that crypto noise, and how to handle it. Ready? Here we go. Do you need to take a little shakeout, stretch, prepare yourself, clear your mind, smell an oil, have some tea, do it. Let's stay present through to the end here. Okay. Energy usage. This is a big one. I just posted a video. I've just started in January posting videos on crypto on YouTube. I encourage you to check out my YouTube channel. I would love to see you there, and just also to have your support, watching the videos and subscribing to the channel if you feel so inclined, because it's really, to me, it's such a beautiful way to put a different kind of consciousness and quality of perspective into this space. And I think it's needed. And thank you for checking it out. So you just search Tiffany Carole under YouTube. So Bitcoin mining uses large amounts of energy. This is true. That is not really up for debate. Bitcoin mining uses large amounts of energy, but let's put it in perspective. So 0.55% of the energy in the world is what's used. And this is on an annual basis. So it does use large amounts of energy, and we're going to put that within context and perspective here. 0.55 of the energy in the world. Now we're going to further put it into context. The world generates 160,000 kilowatt kilowatts per year, 160,000 kilowatts per year. Approximately 50,000 of those 160,000 kilowatts are wasted. So that's about 30%. And I had to look into this, like what's meant by wasted? So there's actually a lot of energy that's wasted through transit, trying to move energy from one place to another. That's one of the main ways that we see wasted energy. So approximately 30%. Now, 120 kilowatts per year are used to run the Bitcoin network. So that is 1/4 of 1% of just the wasted energy of the world. So 1/4 of 1% of that 30%, the wasted energy. Okay. So you start to feel these sort of parameters of context opening up. The thing with arguments that I loved this about, like philosophical debates, is that with any kind of argument, you can't, it's not just one dimensional. We have to bring in all of the context, and then we have to bring in comparables. Remember that Bitcoin is a monetary network. In this sense, my face is covering up part of it. It is like, I think I might be missing one word, but in this sense, it is like the digital banking network, store of value, and value transfer network, right? Okay, so Bitcoin is a monetary network. There's already a tremendous amount of assets in the Bitcoin monetary networks. It says below 1 trillion currently. And so you can think, if just compare that to a banking network. A banking network is also storing value and assets, and it's transferring value. So to evaluate the energy argument intelligently, we have to look at the output gain. We have to look at the output gain, so what comes out the other side for that energy, in exchange for the energy usage in. Got it? To evaluate the energy argument intelligently, we have to look at the output gain in exchange for the energy usage in. Otherwise, the argument itself doesn't really make sense. So currently, approximately 1 trillion in assets are secured on the Bitcoin network, secured by 2 billion per year in energy. That's how much it costs. This comes to approximately 2 cents per kilowatt hour. By the way, most energy usage, like industrial energy or household energy usage, is running from 8 to 11 cents per kilowatt hour. The traditional banking system, in all of its energy usage, so just think all of the energy usage that's needed for the banks themselves, the physical structures, the digital establishments, the transfer of money, the security, all of the energy that it consumes is somewhere between 4 to 6 times more energy for the same output gain. Traditional banking system uses somewhere between 4 and 6 times more energy for the same output gain. Now, here's another thing that I want to weave in, is that I loved starting to just challenge all of my thought forms around this piece, is that we actually want lots of energy going towards important matters. We really do. Like protecting a worldwide monetary network, we want a lot of energy protecting that network. That equals safety. So again, I want to mirror this in biology. If we look at the brain is only 2% of the weight of the body, but it uses 20% of the O2 of the body, 20% of the energy, O2 to APT. So the brain is 2% of the actual body, and it uses 20% of the energy. Now the retina in our eyes uses 10% of the energy. Again, these are two relatively small things that use together 30% of the energy in the body. And that's because they're important. We want to have plenty of energy going to the brain and to our retina to be able to see, so that we can move through the world. So we have to think about what it is and what it represents in the big scheme of things as well. This is an important part of the equation. Bitcoin miners go where the energy is cheap. Wouldn't it make sense if you were a miner to go where the energy is cheap, because it uses a lot of energy? So in general, they try to use marginalized and wasted energy when possible. So solar, wind, gas flares, etc. These are natural gas flares, by the way. So this is oftentimes wasted or uncaptured energy that couldn't be used in other ways that Bitcoin mining operations can use. Does that mean that every Bitcoin mining operation does? No, probably not. And we also don't really know, because we don't know what all of them use. They have been reporting more since there's been more conversation about this. Politics are involved here, because if a country is having very cheap energy that's dirty energy, they're burning coal, but it's very cheap, would Bitcoin miners go there? Yeah, maybe so. They might very well go there because it's cheap energy. Does that make Bitcoin bad? No. I want to put this in perspective, which is why I put this electric car example. If you were an energy nature conscious person, which I imagine probably everybody on here is, and you get yourself an electric car because you're conscious in this way, and you plug it in to charge it on a daily basis, and it just so happens that your energy to your household is coming from the burning of coal. Wouldn't happen in the United States, but say you were somewhere where it was. Actually, here in Sri Lanka, they still burn quite a bit of coal. So you're charging your electric car thinking that you're doing good for the environment, but you're actually using energy that's from the burning of the coal. Does that make the electric car bad? No, it doesn't make the electric car bad. It's the same thing with Bitcoin. We can't, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. You can if you want, but it doesn't make any sense to make Bitcoin bad within this energy argument. Really, what's needed is like what's needed in most all cases, is that more awareness is needed. And one of the beautiful things in 2021, when Elon Musk had his infamous tweet about Bitcoin, and that Tesla would resume taking Bitcoin payments for cars when they were using more renewable energy source. The beautiful thing to come from that is it brought a lot of attention to this. And with attention comes change generally. So there is a movement towards renewables in Bitcoin mining. And because China actually shut down mining last year, a lot of the mining nodes moved out of China and into different places. Texas is actually becoming a big place. The United States in general is becoming a big hub, and there's a lot of awareness around renewable energy there. In Texas, they're looking at solar and wind. By 2035, 99% of the Bitcoin will be mined. Then the network runs only to verify transactions. At this point, the energy usage falls by a magnitude. The network makes itself exponentially efficient over time. This is also a really beautiful thing about Bitcoin. So the network actually becomes efficient over time. Bitcoin is currently the highest value use of energy in the world. When you look at the amount of energy that goes in for the amount of output gain, it is currently the highest value use of energy in the world. I have, as part of my Bitcoin is Transformation course, a whole list of resources for you. And what I'll also do is in the email that I send out to you with the recording, I'll also send you some links to some of these resources if you want to explore them yourself. Okay, great. So I wanted to cover that one in most detail because it seems to be the one that's probably one of the most sticky spots for healers and visionaries. Now we're going to look briefly at regulations, fatter bubbles, safety, internet failure. Then we're going to look at the other cryptos and how to get started to finish off. Okay, so regulations. This is a whole big conversation and big topic, but what I want to touch on is, will regulations come to the world of cryptocurrency? Yes, they will. And some people hate that. They feel like it kind of goes against the, rebel aspect of cryptocurrency. I totally feel that and get that. And at the same time, just having studied the evolution of culture over time, I see and value the importance of regulations to create order. I really, really do. There's something to that. So can regulations get out of hand and, oppress people and take away their liberties? Absolutely. Can regulations also exist to foster greater ease and freedom within culture? Yes, absolutely. It can go both ways. So I think that as we, part of the Bitcoin's in the crypto markets actually has been in a dip for about since the beginning of the year now. It's a very good time. This is not financial advice, but I will just say it is a good time to actually invest in cryptocurrency right now because the numbers are lower. And part of that is because of sort of insecurity around what regulations are going to be. People are sort of holding their breath. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? Regulations over time will actually help to lessen the volatility of the crypto markets, which will be a good thing. And it'll just provide overall more clarity. But will we see more volatility as regulations come into place? Yes, that will happen. The question I think that comes up around this too is like, will it be outlawed, somehow I'm not in the United States now, but I'm a United States citizen. At this point, I don't, with all the research that I've done, the likelihood of it getting outlawed is what one of my mentors said, well, anything is possible. Some things are much more probable. The likelihood of it getting outlawed somehow at this point is so minuscule. It's not hardly worth mentioning other than to just identify it. And if we just look, I mean, Bitcoin is now integrated into the major payment gateways, Stripe, PayPal, Venmo. You have most all of your major financial institutions talking about crypto and now beginning to offer up opportunities for crypto. I mean, people like Goldman Sachs talking about crypto, major corporations talking about it, incorporating crypto. It's such a part of substantial entities now that, again, the likelihood is very low. Okay, well, there's a lot more that one could say about this. I'm going to leave this at that for now. Now, ready? Is this a fad or a bubble? What do you think? Is it a fad or a bubble? Fad or a bubble? Or both? Or not? Here's the thing. There's truth to both sides of this. And that is, I'll give you a clear example. The dot-com bubble, that was called a bubble. So the dot-com bubble was bubbling up on top of the internet wave, the internet phenomena. So the internet itself was not a fad or a bubble, obviously, but there was a lot of dot-coms that bubbled up and popped at a certain point and went to nothing. And it's similar with crypto. So blockchain technology is not going anywhere. Bitcoin at this point is not going anywhere. There are thousands now of cryptos and tokens. It's so cool. I just love learning about them and reading about them. And there are definitely many of those that are fads or bubbles, and they will pop and they will go to nothing. So both are true. There is substantialness there that's not going anywhere. And are there little fad or bubbles within that ecosystem? Yes, there are. So be mindful. More about that in a minute. Safety, the safety about money being sent across these crypto railways. The actual blockchain itself is one of the most safe things that we know of. It's at this point in time unhackable. And there's experiments that have been put into place around the supercomputers, supercomputers, to see if they could hack the blockchain network. And still, I don't have the stat in front of me, but it's like if you took 10,000 supercomputers and you put them working on trying to hack it, it would take, I don't know, I think it was like 10,000 years with X amount of computing power. So it's highly, highly unlikely, at least at this point where we are. So it's much more safe than the traditional banking system, for example. Now, where there are safety concerns, because there are safety concerns, is in the exchanges. And this is what we use to buy the crypto or send the crypto. Those are very similar to like digital banking interfaces, and they can be hacked. We see credit card companies get hacked, digital banking interfaces get hacked. The security is very high. They're constantly working on improving it, but is there a chance of hacking? Yes, there is a chance of that. So for most people that are investing little bits in Bitcoin and sort of growing it that way, there's not a lot to worry about in general. But if you started to get more serious about crypto investing, it's a good idea to think about taking your crypto and putting it onto what's called a hard wallet, which is only you have access to. That's a whole other big subject. So if and when you get there, you can do some research for yourself on that. And the last piece is internet failure. So what happens if the internet fails? Because this is all happening through the internet. The likelihood of the entire internet of the entire globe failing all at once is very, 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 very minuscule. But in that case, yes, it would be a problem, especially if we didn't get it back up and running again. But I think if whatever would need to happen for the entire internet to fail in the entire world, I don't think it really matters much if you had Bitcoin or whatever you have. I think at that point, whatever's happening is like you're back to the serious basics of survival and some kind of barter system. So it becomes a moot point. If the internet partially fails in areas, we can see a decrease in what's called the hash rate, which has to do with the amount of, or the rate of supply of Bitcoin being produced. And then we can see fluctuations in price. We've seen that before. Yeah, that's about a good place to stop on that one. Okay, you ready for the home stretch? You did so good. This is our last few minutes here. What a joy. Here we go. So many cryptos. What does it all mean? And how do I navigate with ease and intelligence? Good Lord. Look at all those cool little icons. So I'm just going to give you my opinion and what I've done that's worked for me. I'm not telling you what to do. You can investigate this for yourself. You can run it through your systems of understanding and decide. Bitcoin, being like digital gold, is the least risky to invest in at this point. And while I know people that like to argue that, the truth is that the market, some people like to argue that something's going to replace Bitcoin, but the truth is the marketplace, remember I talked about that in the beginning? The marketplace has already self-selected Bitcoin. It has been self-selected by the marketplace, by collective of societies across the globe. And the reason why I can say that with such confidence is because if you look at the crypto prices, Bitcoin is the king. Anytime Bitcoin drops, pretty much everything drops except for little things that are flaring for random sort of reasons or seemingly random sort of reasons. So Bitcoin has been selected as, we could call it the base layer, as the digital gold. And just like once gold was selected in that way, it was heavy, it was dense, it wasn't really going anywhere. That was the shared agreement. This is where we're at with Bitcoin. So it's the least risky of the ones to invest in. Will you see volatility? Yes. This year, I was thinking I was going to show you a couple of graphs, but in essence of time, I won't. But this year, or so last year, let's take last year. Bitcoin reached a high of 69,000 a coin and a low of, I believe, 28,000 a coin. So that's a big spread, low of 28,000, high of 69,000. And now this year started off with a dip. I think we've dipped all the way down to 31 or 32. And earlier today when I looked, it was 38 something. So you can see these oscillations, these swings that will make you nervous probably at first. You know, you bought it at, I remember, I think when I first started buying into Bitcoin, it was at around 40 something. And then it went all the way up to 69. I felt like I was a genius. And then it dropped all the way to 28. And I was like, oh my God, what have I done? And this was when I was really still learning about the substantialness of it at this time. So, excuse me. So if you decide to invest in it, my suggestion, just my suggestion, not a financial advisor, is to buy it and hold it. Nobody's ever lost money on Bitcoin if they hold it for at least 4 years. So just general rule of thumb, never invest anything that you can't lose. Nobody wants to lose money, but that you can't lose. Like, don't invest the money that you need to absolutely pay your mortgage or your rent. But take whatever you have extra, if you like, and that you can, and you put it in there and you just leave it alone and just don't even think about it. And over time, you will see that increase in store value and wealth. There are many predictions about how high Bitcoin will get. $1 million a coin, $200,000 a coin. They go on and on. I'm not going to get into those here, but one thing we know for sure is that over time, Bitcoin will grow in value. We're as close to sure as anyone can possibly be in the universe where anything is possible. Now, next, Ethereum is another relatively low risk one, coin to invest in. And think of it this way, like if Bitcoin is the, think of Bitcoin like the car, and Ethereum is like the gas that runs the car. So Bitcoin is heavy, it's dense, it's older. It's the store of value, it's like the gold. And Ethereum is what helps, and what's built on the Ethereum ecosystem is what helps money move around. It helps applications be active. There's a lot exploding in the Ethereum ecosystem right now, so that's also a beautiful thing to look into. I weight myself primarily in those two, and then I take about 30 to 40% of the rest of my money, and I distribute it between other what they call altcoins. They're more risky. Some of them are even what we could call a gamble. And I distribute it based on my risk tolerance and my emotional resiliency in relationship to market volatility. So that's what I would recommend, or that's what I've done. And this is a sound recommendation for the average person. If you want to get into trading and potentially making a lot more money in a shorter period of time, no, Bitcoin wouldn't be the first one to go to. You would research other things and you would do more active trading and active leveraging. But please do your research before you do that. Don't do it willy-nilly. Go in with your eyes as wide open as you can, okay? I created a video, it's on YouTube, and it's called Investment as a Spiritual Practice. And I go more into this kind of resiliency that investing in crypto can develop in you and how it actually is spiritual development. I think you might like to check that out. In closing, my gosh, it's right on time. In closing, next steps, start somewhere. So I had a friend, I wonder if he's even on this right now, who I had heard about cryptocurrency in 2017, but it was just way over my head. And then I had a friend that at the beginning of last year, 2021, he was telling me about it. He was showing me what money he'd made. And he just said, just download this app right now and just connect your bank account. I just did it right there in front of him. I downloaded the app and then I connected my bank account and bought my first Bitcoin. It has radically, radically changed my life for the better on every level possible, spiritual, soulful, physical, on every level possible. So start somewhere, and where I could suggest that you could start, if you're new, if you're not new to this, then you've already started, so this wouldn't really matter to you. But if you're new, there are quite a few different exchanges out there, and certainly there's some of them that offer lower fees than the one I'm about to recommend. But the one that I'm about to recommend is the most user-friendly that I've ever found. It's the easiest to use, and it's the most popular one, the most used at this point. It's called Coinbase. Depending on where you are in the world, it's usable in most places in the world, but you might be somewhere where Coinbase doesn't operate. You might have to investigate what cryptocurrency exchange you can use in your country. Right now, I've been investigating that for Sri Lanka, and it's limited what they can use. But I'm just going to recommend one thing to start, because sometimes if we have more than one choice, even that's a deterrent. So download Coinbase. I'm going to send you, right after we finish this, an email with some of the things that I said that I would send, and I'll send you my referral link for Coinbase. It's kind of fun because you'll get once you set up your account, you'll have a referral link too. And I think we each get like, I don't know, $10 in Bitcoin if you make an investment. So you can download Coinbase, connect your bank account, and then just buy some Bitcoin if this speaks to you. Buy a little, 25 bucks, 50 bucks, whatever you can do, and get started that way and just watch it and see. You can also put automatic buys. So I buy automatically every day, a certain amount every single day of Bitcoin. And I do that because it's called dollar cost averaging, because it's so volatile, rather than rather than going through the whole emotional roller coaster when it's dropping of if I should buy or is it going to go lower. I just keep it on a steady daily buy, which averages out over time in terms of sometimes I'm buying high and sometimes low. Okay, so that's my suggestion for getting started. Also, that course, Bitcoin is Transformation, has more suggestions for you, more information. I'm so happy to have been on this with you, on this journey with you. And we still have quite a lot of people that made it all the way through. Hooray for you. I'm very, very, very impressed. I'm going to close out here and send you all an email. And I'm going to get this webinar posted so that you can also share it with others if you found it helpful and found it interesting. Do check out my YouTube channel. I'd love to see you there. And from my heart to yours, until next time.